sound.
Yeah.
But what about, I'm interested in unborn babies and newborn children and very young children, because, we report at Live Action News on some of these cases. As an example, a little boy named Jackson, he was born with severe hydrocephaly. I think he was actually anencephalic. He had a brain stem, but he lacked the rest of his brain. And he was born, he was nonverbal, but his parents, they were told to abort. They did not abort. He lived to be, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And he was they felt that he was interacting with them, even though he was nonverbal. So, but
I think it's perfectly possible, because I don't think that interaction, honestly, is dependent on the physical brain. As I said, I think there's very good evidence, even that, right now you can't prove that a person in the womb, right, has a soul. You can certainly see near-death experiences of children who are 3 years old, or sometimes even 2.5 years old. Some of the very famous anecdotal stories, like Colton Burpo, right? He's 4 years old, and he clearly has had a near-death experience. And his soul left his body, and he comes back and says, "Well, I met my sister in heaven." The mother says, "No, your sister's right here." "No, not in heaven." "Oh, no, she's in heaven, all right." "Well, how do you know she's in heaven?" "Because when I got to heaven, she came up and hugged me, said that, she was my sister." And the mother says, "Well, I don't see how that's possible. She told me that she died 2 months, after she was conceived in mommy's tummy." She didn't use the word conceived. But anyway, she told me she died when she was 2 months old. And she was still in mommy's tummy. And she said that she died then and went to heaven. And she's been growing up in heaven over here. And so she is, whatever it was, 6 years old, 2 or 3 years older than Colton. And the mother goes, "Well, what was her name?" And Colton just said, "She has no name, because she said you and Daddy didn't know whether she was a boy or a girl, so you didn't name her." This is exactly the conversation that, of course, the mother and father did not disclose to Colton. But, he didn't even know he had a sister that miscarried. And so essentially, so you can get these anecdotal stories, but, it's very hard to prove. Sir John Eccles, he has a book called Evolution of the Body, Creation of the Self, or no, Evolution of the Brain, Creation of the Self. The self is obviously another word for soul, right? A non-corporeal basis of self-consciousness. So, but soul is another word for it. But Eccles has a very good argument that in order, this in terms of brain physiology and the development of the brain in utero, right? Essentially, it's the fact that the brain is oriented towards self-consciousness and conceptual ideas. That is what's making the brain, sort of form in the way that it does. It's not mere genetic instruction. There's something already there.
The soul is instructing the genetic code, is what you're saying.
It's almost as if the soul is, like a telos, right? Like a goal, in a final cause in Thomistic, philosophy, is drawing the brain to its completion to be integrated with its abstract, self-conscious, and transcendental self. So, right, there are three things you cannot explain with physical processes and structures in the brain. You can't explain self-consciousness, you can't explain abstract conceptual ideas, and you can't explain transcendental consciousness. Our awareness of perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and home, our spiritual awareness of God, which of course includes our moral awareness, or what we call conscience. All those things are not reducible to physical processes and structures. So, and by the way, I'm talking about, we're not just talking about religious philosophers, we're talking about, non-religious philosophers, as well as, as people who are analytical philosophers, people who are transcendental philosophers, phenomenologists, etc. So it's a wide range of people who think it's not just the philosophical evidence, it's also the scientific evidence of terminal lucidity, near-death experiences, intelligence in hydrocephalic patients.
Wow.
So, the point is do I think that Colton Burpo was making this up? No, I don't. Do I think his parents were making it up? No, but I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal stories beyond Colton Burpo, which would suggest that miscarried children, do have a soul and they're growing up in heaven. And, it seems like the soul body that leaves our physical body looks like what we looked like when we were between 25 to 30 years old. And so you can see, for example, you take, again, Colton, but there's many other, right? If you go to the University of Virginia Medical School, you get plenty of other examples in their files there. But the main thing is Colton says, I met, a great grandfather or so and so, and they go, oh yeah, well, what did he look like? And they show him a picture, when he was 80 years old and died, and he goes, no, that's not him. That's not him. So and they go, well, what do you look at? Oh, he was much younger. So then they get a 30-year-old picture of, great grandfather so and so. That's him, all right. But they put it into a whole bunch of other pictures and said, pick him out.
Wow.
Bing, that guy. That's the guy. And of course.
How old is Colton now? When did this happen? His near-death experience?
That's a while back. So I bet he's 14, 15.
We got to get Colton on the show. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. His parents wrote a book for him called Heaven is for Real.
Yes. Okay. I have seen that book.
And they made it, I think, into a movie or something too. But that's just one example among many. But the main thing, though, is, I think there's something to it. I think what Eccles is saying is true, that, our cerebral cortex is meant to be serving a transcendent soul. And you go, well, what's the mediator of that? I mean, how do we avoid mind-body dualism? I think it's quantum mechanics myself. I think quantum fields are what do the mediation.
Wow.
And in my book, Science at the Doorstep to God, I have a whole chapter on this. And I look at what Sir John Eccles says about quantum mediation, as well as David Bohm and other people like him. These are good. David Bohm's a really important physicist.
Father, I have so many questions of what you just said. That was amazing.